Please talk to us.
Okay, we are starting with top stories of the day, of the week. Welcome back to Rush Hour. My name is Mubarak Mugabo. We are getting into the big issue of the day, and being a Friday, we are looking at the top stories that have made headlines over the last week, over the week that we are concluding this week. We are looking at certainly northern Uganda in the spotlight. The issues of the contradictions in apaa land are still going on. The Madi and the Acholi people are still having, unresolved issues over that contentious land. We will be putting certainly some emphasis and also discussions upon that issue and what needs to be done to resolve this long impending conflict. Also still in northern Uganda, government recently impounded over 800 head of cattle in northern Uganda belonging to Balalo. Remember, President Museveni was in the north and gave a directive that those who do not have unfenced land should actually live at the north. We'll also look at that story and what needs to be done to give or to get it an ultimate solution to ensure that that issue is dealt with. But also we are still looking at COP28. Uganda is among those countries that sent hundreds of delegates to COP28. And some friends were telling me that actually most of these delegates have gone to a climate change conference, but they are ending up polluting the conference themselves. Nigeria, Malawi, Kenya, and of course other African countries are under the same scrutiny over sending thousands and of course of delegates to this COP28. We are looking at the impact that these delegations are actually making and vis-a-vis the money that we actually put in terms of allowances and of course the cost that the government has to bear. My guests this morning are two, as usual. Charles Kazoba is a senior researcher, and also engineer Olanya Olenge Tonny is a designate minister for lands and natural resources in Acholi Cultural Institution. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
I want to start with you, Charles. What has been the top story over the week before we get into the nitty-gritties of the discussions of the week?
About three. Of course, you know my area of interest, East Africa. The East African force is coming from DRC. I think Tshisekedi has refused to renew the mandate. Considering that he's heading into an election this month, he just chose not to, and is opting that SADC comes in. Of course, it's a controversial decision because
being a member of the East African community.
Not only that, Kabila refused to join,
yes.
But when Tshisekedi came in, he's the one who decided to join EAC. It was his decision. It was also his decision that the other East African countries send in forces, because he had promised in his manifesto that he would stabilize Eastern Congo. That has failed now. I don't know what he will be telling the people. However, bringing in SADC might cause more issues.
But DRC is part of SADC at the same time.
It is. But you see, that's what we are talking about, lack of principles. The way Tshisekedi has approached the insecurity in DRC is wrong from day one. What he should have done would have been to, first of all, empower his army, because his army is more or less like Asian. They can't fight. They are corrupt. About 100,000 soldiers with such a huge territory, they can do nothing. So his investment would have been to expand the army, train them better, invest a lot of resources in his army. And that training could have come from Uganda, Rwanda, and others who would have helped train his soldiers. That side, my second story, of course, again, it's to do with the military the new rebel group, I've seen about 30 people arrested, having started a new rebel group, and there are soldiers, there are police officers in that group. It's a very interesting story. Let's wait and see where it heads. Lastly, of course, it is the hypocrisy exhibited by none other than Bobby Wine on the matter of LGBT. I think Bobby Wine has now exhibited or expressed his true character, that he's a selfish guy. He would even sell a country by what he said, because I don't think he really means what he said, but because he has...
He sacrificed his own members,
yes,
of parliament.
So, the 2026 is going for him, because this is a popular law. Ugandans want homosexuality out of Uganda. They want the law. By the way, it's not about the leaders.
This is something that may actually cost
very,
him,
very, very
yes,
popular.
at the poll.
Yes.
Engineer Tonny, what has been actually the biggest story of your week?
Thank you so much. I think my biggest stories of the week have been around the issue of the supplementary budget. To me, I would have believed that a country like Uganda trying to cope up with the economic challenges should also have clear-headed people in decision making, because supplementary in its essence should have been to really give in room for areas that could have not been seen properly in the budgeting.
That's true.
I mean, areas that are not foreseen, things that come in as emergencies, like issues with defense, issues maybe with the state.
With an outbreak.
But not necessarily to have ministers smuggle in figures. I mean, that is really, really so very unnecessary, yeah. And then, of course, also, I've been looking into the stories of COP28, whereby you see
the delegations.
The delegation is quite overwhelming.
I'm just wondering how Chelsea is still here. It should have been.
The delegation was not necessary,
yeah.
For sure. How do you have over 600 delegates in a country that is struggling? Then you're paying billions of shillings going out of the economy at the time when we should have been sinking more money in the economy. There's no money that is exchanging hands in the economy. People find it hard to even have access to money. So that wasn't really necessary. Of course, that's not the first time. You saw the other time at the
Yunga,
yes,
General Assembly.
Very well, where you have the Prime Minister,
parallel
delegation, yes, with that of the Vice President.
Over 70, actually.
Yes, I think the President needs to take very serious consideration into cracking the whip on his ministers, because it is getting out of hand. Yet the same President also issued a guidance on issues of foreign trips and travels. So
actually, when they were debating this current budget, they were emphasizing the issue of being frugal. How do you ensure that you deliver this budget by being, so they were saying we are cutting on travels and also ensuring that every government entity becomes a little frugal. I think that's a disappointment.
Yeah, big one. Then maybe my last story is the clarion call made by the cultural institution of Acholi. The paramount chief made a clarion call on government and every stakeholder in the extractive industry to be very transparent, to have a sense of belonging and equity for all stakeholders involved in the extractive industry, talking oil, talking the minerals. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, let's start actually from that same point of cultural institutions and of course the North. The North have been actually in the news for quite some time, especially in the issue of apaa and the issues of balalo. But let's start with the issue of balalo. We have had government starting to act. 800 head of cattle belonging to balalo were certainly impounded. How fair is this? Let me start with you, Tony, before I get to Charles.
On the question of the balalo, I would say so many mistakes have been made and so much has to be done to correct these mistakes. Number one, government needed to take responsibility in this from the word go by, first of all, detribalizing the livestock industry. For the case of Acholi sub-region, you know, we lost cattle in the subsequent wars. And if you look at the reports, even government has taken responsibility of certain angles of the the looting of the cattle from the north. So there should have been a deliberate effort to do restocking. The efforts that have been made in doing restocking of the cattle in northern Uganda has not been enough. To say that you are paying for actually what debt claimants for their livestock, and then you're paying maybe somebody who has lost 500 cattle, 500 cows, I mean, you're paying them 2 cows per financial year. Instead of saying, let's clear Lango sub-region once and for all, put all the money and focus on Lango and clear them once and for all. Instead of dividing, say, pay some parts for Acholi, some parts for Lango, some parts for other for Teso. So the priority that government puts is also not a good strategy. 2, you should have asked yourself a question on the balalo. Why now? Is it the first time? Is it that they've entered northern Uganda today? No, they've been there for a while. The fattening project has been there for a while. I see a problem, and I have told a few colleagues that the first problem that was made was to ensure that politicians take a center stage in this. Yet politicians are supposed to just do a check and balance on a different level. For the issue of Acholi sub-region or northern Uganda, land is held customarily, according to the customs. The law says that means the land is held according to the customs. And our customs in Acholi are very clear. You are holding land in trust for those who are dead and for those yet to be born. Literally, when you have to sell customary land, you have to consult all those 3 stakeholders. You can't do that. Literally,
meaning even the dead.
Yes.
How do you consult the dead?
That is how the customs were set. Meaning customary land cannot be sold. You've even seen the landmark cases. So it means that those who bought customary land, knowing or unknowingly, have bought air. So the question now goes back to how do you resolve this impasse? That is why you would look into cases whereby, how about now having discussions on the round table and saying those who bought, perhaps we convert the money that you bought into rent. Say maybe after a period, maybe 10 years, that money that you've paid or 5 years, it's converted to rent. You can't chase them completely because they've paid money. So there are those issues. Of course, now that goes to the legal people to discuss that much. But that would be something that I would think would be a good position because, number one, national unity and national cohesion is quite important. People should coexist. That one I agree with. But I also want to tell you that before you start to raise more concerns into the balalo question, you would have asked yourself one question. Why did they receive them very well? The Acholi people are one of the most hospitable lot of people. Ask everyone who has gone to Gulu, who has stayed in the north. You would ask yourself, why now? Because of the anger that some of the balalo cattle herders have brought in. They have gone as far as trying to destabilize family settings. You know, the family is a very key institution in our tribe. Destabilizing families. Destabilizing families, I mean, coming to take away somebody's wife, trying to take away maybe a young girl. Yes, those cases are there. I have done investigation in those areas. There are other balalos who are very arrogant. Others have taken it a little notch higher by trying as much as possible to even carry guns and move around with weapons. And I asked one of the RDCs, he unfortunately has been transferred to Arua now. I asked him, I said, Commissioner, you're the representative of the president in the district. Who is arming this balalo? And I told him that before this thing gets out of hand, we're still at the level of dialoguing. I did my part in dialoguing. I told them before it gets out of hand, that is before the politicians came on board. Before it gets out of hand, can we have a better way of handling this? Tell the balalo to form an association. Tell them to first crack a whip on their members.
We will get to the solution.
So I told them.
I wanted to first get views from Charles, especially on that same point. Do you find this fair that cattle is being impounded, and do you find this issue of impounding that can as well solve the problem going on in the north?
You know, maybe you should allow me to give it, to put it in a bigger spectrum so that we get an idea on what these people are feeling. You know, world over, we are under a system called liberalism. It's the dominant system of government, which has capitalism and democracy.
Yes.
Now, under democracy, it is assumed that there is a contract between government and the people, the citizens. So you agree that this is how we want you to lead us. Now, that social contract, the key elements are that government must protect the rights of citizens of property and liberty. When government fails, the people can withdraw their support from government, and the people can overthrow that government. Those two elements are very important. People's property and their liberty. You've seen what is happening in DRC, the M23. Those are the two elements that have caused confusion. In Uganda, I've been in this matter for over 10 years. The balalo issues. Even the Bunyoro saga, the Bulisa saga, you remember? I was there. The same arguments that the people in the north, the leaders in the north have put on table are the same arguments
that the Bunyoro people had.
Yes, it's a communal land, they shouldn't have bought, but largely it is failing to appreciate a community to coexist, to live together. Now, these people are not as educated as other Ugandans.
What do you mean?
Because they have spent much of their livelihood
in the bush,
taking care of
their
cattle.
cattle.
Yes. So most of them don't go to school. Just last year, I was at the coastline of Lake Albert. And it's funny. Very important people in this government, or people that are aligned to officials in the government, just over 300 families took their cattle. They could not have their case anywhere accommodated. Go to police, nothing. In fact, police even helped in the eviction. The RDC, same story. The army. Now you ask yourself what is happening. I've been hearing sentiments from leaders, especially in northern Uganda. They say this could be a state orchestrated scheme to take away our land. They don't understand how these people have suffered. Their stock is going down. The numbers of animals are reducing. I know why. Because they have to sell off their animals, first of all, to buy the land, but also to manage these conflicts, to pay the lawyers, to do all these kind of things. Now, you look at the dairy sector, it's growing. It's as if we don't understand how we should be planning. These are the people that are supposed to be sustaining the dairy sector. Now, how do we solve this issue? President Museveni said that one of his first assignments when he was working under Bote was to convince these people to stop
pastoralism.
Yes, to stop pastoralism, settle down, even convert their breeds from locals so that the productivity goes up. It has happened in some areas. Now, these people, why it's not happening, it's the responsibility of government. Government should help these people. They should get them land. They have been buying land everywhere in Uganda, but everywhere they buy land, they are chased. You remember Teso? Some of them were even assaulted. Their cows taken. So it's a group that has suffered immensely at the expense of all Ugandans. But the problem is that nobody speaks for them. And the issue is one, because they are perceived to be President Museveni's people.
But also foreigners. They are perceived to be coming from a different country. And I think that's where Engineer Tonny was coming from, is that is there a way how this can as well be tribalized?
Yes, I was talking on that.
The group that is being talked about has a number of ethnic groups coming together. And these are
So it's not a specific group.
It's not just one tribe.
One tribe, yes.
These are people coming together to find a livelihood, but most of them are from Western Uganda. You will find the Basongora. If you look at the Basongora, you look at the Bahima, you look at the Banyoranda, you may not differentiate who they are. Now, the argument that they are coming from Tanzania, they are coming from Rwanda, that is not true.
I want Engineer Tonny to react especially on the issue of why now, and I want you to react on it. Why do we see this now, and yet this issue has been around for quite some time, Tonny?
First of all, I want to make it very clear that the cultural institution of Ker Kwaro Acholi made very good propositions that, number one, as a method of solving all these conflicts, deconflict the land, make sure the land is conflict-free, okay? By the several interventions they're making, by engaging all the different stakeholders in regards to this land question, because the land question is not only having the balalo. Number two, they have made a clarion call to government and to the relevant stakeholders.
Or there are other
yes.
people who are not balalo, but actually are having conflict on the Acholi land.
The land question is a big issue. The land question has never been solved, and so there needs to be a big intervention and a solution to get the land question answered. But also they've made a clarion call that detribalize the livestock industry. What are they meaning in this? They're saying it should not be only one tribe. That's why when the balalo go to Western, to Bunyoro, they will push them away. Because when you have cattle, you are rich. You are not as other people. The economy that the cattle industry runs is big. I want to give you a scenario. In the 1980s, Acholi had over 300,000 herds of cattle that were taken away. Now, do you know how much that is in the economy of the country, in the economy of the region alone? Because actually they were the biggest supplier of the beef industry in the UK. The money that was being brought into the economy was big. So government must take a deliberate effort so that other people don't look at other sections of Ugandans as favored. So I'm telling you, this is a clarion call. And if they don't handle it, even if the balalo move away from the Acholi or the Acholi land, they move to another area, they'll have the same problem. Just like you said, in Bunyoro, they were pushed away. So the government must take an interest, number one, to engage the stakeholders. And the biggest stakeholder in this is the cultural institution. Why? Why do you engage politicians? I saw politicians were brought at the forefront to say, do verification. MPs were brought at the forefront to do engagements with the balalo. Do you know how that became a bigger problem? That's why now you saw this entire hula ballo around the balalo. And for me, I think the question is not on the balalo, especially for Acholi sub-region. The question is on leadership. Okay? Our leaders are now playing to the emotions of the people, especially the political leaders. They are interested in making it look like they are fighting for the people. Yet the real issue is not the balalo, as it seems. The real issue is leadership, because in the real sense, when the balalo were coming, where were the leaders? When land was being taken, when land was being sold in big numbers, in big acres, where were the leaders? Because they're supposed to be the eye of the people. They're supposed to be the real kingpin to guide the people to move in this direction. Our leaders in northern Uganda are being pushed and being led by the people. Okay? So they've lost direction. So I have been having a conversation with a few young people, and I've told them, perhaps build a transformative agenda for the people of northern Uganda, led by the young people. Perhaps something you could coin a new breed and a new brand of leadership. And government must take deliberate effort in mentorship.
What you're clearly saying is that maybe the ones who are now in leadership are already compromised.
Because let me ask you,
that actually, shapes the basis of my question. Why now? Because it looks like politics is being played around this issue. But I want you to react onto that, Charles, and of course Tonny. After this very short break, we want to expound it more. Even we reach to the issue of apaa land, because it looks like it is not just the balalo, but also the land question in Acholi and of course other parts of the country has not necessarily been handled to the detail. We want to take a short break. When we come back, we want to expound that. And of course, we're looking at the delegations to COP28. Have a good morning.